And on that vibrant note, let's move forward towards our keynote address on sustainable growth and transformation in Asia, the trends that will impact the decisive decade. And I'm sure all of us are eagerly looking forward to this because our keynote speaker joining us to share his thoughts is none other than Datuk Dr. Vinod Sekhar, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, the PETRA Group Malaysia, which is a global conglomerate involved in sustainable industries with one common goal of providing solutions for humanity. Petra Group's businesses range from manufacturing, modular building construction, and many more. And as an advocate for social capitalism, Dr. Vinod believes that business interests and societal concerns should go hand in hand, which acts as the basis of the Petra Group. So we've got a dynamic leader to share his keynote address with all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, time to deep dive and find out the trends that will impact the decisive decade. Here we go.
It's a great privilege to be at this conference and speaking to all of you. I am hopeful that this conference will lead to further discussion and further implementation of ideas that can help the world regain its footing as we move forward post-pandemic, or at least what we expect to be as the post-pandemic reality going forward. Um, the one thing we can all agree on is that this pandemic of COVID 19 has exposed the significant weaknesses in our social and economic structures globally. Um, it has shown the disparity of wealth that exists and the access to both support, healthcare, and education. Uh, that's the downside. The upside is it's given us an opportunity to actually fix those issues. It's allowed us to accelerate, perhaps, um, the programs that might have taken a decade or two, but now can be implemented swiftly. Um, this pandemic has shown us that when we have a will to work together, when we have a common cause and a drive and a political will as well, um, things happen. Um, the vaccines, one example. But on the other side, it's also exposed the disparity um, and the fact that this pandemic has widened the disparity between the haves and the have nots. While some uh, developing countries have pushed ahead with digitization, modernization of the economy, have taken on board the changes they need to make to be able to be competitive. Um, Others have unfortunately fallen. Um, the dramatic impact of the pandemic has been too much for them. And unfortunate self interest, short sighted self interest among the haves, and I don't want to say just Western democracies or or other wealthy nations, because I think we find short-sighted self-interest everywhere. Um, that unfortunately has caused many nations to struggle, many people to struggle. So those are the realities that the pandemic has shown across the board. Um, the one thing that has been clear is that we can't go on this way. We have an opportunity to change things. We have an opportunity to make a difference in how our economic reality works. I'm a social capitalist. Um, it means to me that businessmen, businesswomen, economic leaders have to play a role in societal development. We can no longer step aside. We can no longer say, no, we pay taxes and we're not involved in fixing social issues or societal issues. We are part and parcel of it. We make money off the community, the environment we work out of. And if we don't play a role in sustaining them, in enhancing them, in strengthening them, um, we basically um, cut our own legs going forward. We have to play chess, not checkers, I guess is what I'm saying. Short-sightedness has no role any longer. Um, Annual profit based on cash has to be the scope of which has to be widened. We have to look at profit beyond cash, and we have to look beyond the end of year results if we're going to be sustainable and if we're going to grow. Um, the whole idea of social capitalism, to me, and which this post-pandemic times requires, is the idea that I make money out of, you know, a person over there that I sell a product to, or a person on over there that I sell a service to, and then I make more money by having more of them, which means I need as many people as possible to rise from poverty into the middle class. I need to play a role in pushing them up because you see, I want their money, but they need to have it for me to take it from them. And that's the reality, and we need to face that reality. So economic leaders like me and others have to now focus some attention on those in our community, in the environment we work with, that are in poverty. We have to push them up. We have to play a role in pushing them up. That may be in education, that may be in creating jobs in whatever way possible. We have to temper greed. Greed is neither good nor bad. Greed just is. It's a powerful engine. It's like having a powerful sports car. If you can't control it, you drive it, you'll crash into a tree and kill yourself or kill someone else. But if you can control that engine, if you can control that car, and you can accelerate on the straights and take the curves whenever you need to, then you have control over a very powerful engine. And that's, I think, the key here is to temper greed and to realize what can I do with 10 million that I can't do with eight? What can I do with 100 million I can't do with 80? What can I do with $1,000 that I can't do with $800? Um, and I think that reality, that thinking, that paradigm shift, if you like, in how we look at economics has to play a role. I am not a great supporter of CSR. I think it's too much of a box ticking exercise. It doesn't change the lifeblood of a company. It allows people to just tick a box and says, I'm sorry, I've planted 1,000 trees over there. I've done my bit. We have to go way beyond that. If this world is going to survive going forward, and we're ready to face some other pandemic, which will happen, or some other emergency that's global, we have to change the way we think. We have to change the way we do things. We cannot keep living in a world where there are simultaneous epidemics of both starvation and obesity, sometimes in the same country. It's nonsense. We all know it's nonsense. We all know it's ridiculous. Um, but there doesn't seem to be a will among economic leaders to step up and do something about it. And it's time we did. It's time we all played a role. We can't just leave it to politicians. They're good at a certain number of things, but we business people, we have a trade craft that's quite unique. We fix problems, we rebuild companies, we re-energize them, we brand them, we roll them out. It's like having a dying duck. We have the best accountants and the best around that will change the bones and change the arteries of a dying duck and pump new blood through it. We have the best lawyers in the world that will now certify that this formerly dying duck is alive and well. And then we have the best communications people. They will now tell the world and prove to them that not only is this dying duck alive and well, it's laying golden eggs. Now, if we can take a small percentage of that ingenuity and used it to find a solution for a societal issue, for a societal developmental issue, imagine what's possible. And in doing that, we enhance our wealth, we enhance our market, we strengthen our market. A healthier market, a stronger community means more profit. And I think that's a key element of what we have to do now going forward. Um, when we look at technologies now, we have to make sure technologies are commercial, that they can be profitable. Because If a technology, however brilliant, is not profitable, you get a pat on the back, and people say wonderful things about you, but it'll have no global impact, and that's a reality. But if we focus on making it commercial, then everyone buys in and it grows. And there's always a way of doing it. Uh, you have to be innovative in your thinking, and keep working at a technology until it's commercial. The whole idea of social capitalism is not about wearing a hair shirt and sacrificing too much. It's about, if you're smart enough to be wealthy, if you're smart enough to have your cars and your toys and everything else, and the luxury lifestyle you live in, then surely you're smart enough to lift others with you, to find a way of improving society around you. And that, with climate change and environmental issues, we have to come to the reality that it's not just about climate change. We cannot just focus on technology to handle climate change, the environment. It has to be holistic. It has to include poverty eradication. It has to include uplifting communities. It's not enough to say, oh, we must stop all palm oil plantations, without thinking about the communities that live within those plantations, that survive off those plantations, where the education system is provided, healthcare is provided, the income is provided. So we have to take all these things into account. Um, the West basically destroyed their environment to enrich themselves over a few hundred years. And now they're expecting the developing world to do the same, because there's nothing left on their end. So the developing world, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, um, are asked now, listen, guys, save the trees, stop the deforestation, look at the environmental programs, which is absolutely right. We have to. But since they've enriched themselves off their environment by destroying their environment, and they now want the rest of the world that still has the rainforests and has other programs, um, to now maintain it, then I think there must be a shared economic cost. Surely then the developing world should be paid, or should have an income to replace what they would lose by stopping certain industrial programs, certain economic programs that benefit them. And this is a reality we have to pay attention to. We have to do something about. We have to have a handicapping system. I know golf is sometimes seen as an elite sport, but the rules of golf, which involves handicaps, I think is amazing. And I think we need a global handicapping system where each country has a handicap. And based on the handicap, there are the benefits that come in to allow a more equal playing field. And I guess this pandemic has shown the next shift is trying to find a way to have a more equal playing field, to let those that have not have the ability to step up, move forward with support, with earned support, um, that the others, are already doing. And so, if if we look at this process going forward of what else we need to do, I think the simplest way of looking at it is that we have an opportunity to make a real difference. We have an opportunity to step up and say, okay, we can change the world. We can change the way we look at economics. We can change the way we look at economic leadership. And we can now actually create new rules, create a whole new board game for us to participate in, and make the difference that's required in this world. If we don't, we're signing our own demise, because what we've had before is unsustainable. It just doesn't work. Um, this pandemic has shown that the environment doesn't need decades to rehabilitate itself. Just a few months of shutdown brought the environment back in its full glory. So that's not impossible. Again, it just means we have to now focus on doing something about it. And I'm hoping that the pains that we've all had to go through, some much more than others, um, provide the lessons necessary to make the changes, to take the leaps uh, going forward. I I want to I want to share something with you. I mean, I guess I could have spent a lot of my time in this keynote address talking about economic numbers and all that, but I didn't want to because I think you all know economic numbers. You all know the current situation. There are many, many articles on it. We're all aware within our own communities um, uh, what's going on. And I don't want to just keep repeating that. I wanted to share, I think, something more critical, more important. That is how we should look at things going forward as business leaders. Because if business leaders don't involve themselves now, if business leaders don't get into the act of saying, no, we will play a role, we will play a leadership role in helping our society move forward, um, then I think we're all lost. And one way is to look at how we see money and cash. And I want to share one very, very quick story with you. Um, when I was younger, I used to go with my mother. I was a teenager. When I came back from school, from boarding school, I used to go with my mother to the Spastic Children's Association every 2 weeks during the summer holidays. And while she attended her board of governors meeting, I would run around and play with the kids that were visiting there. And I became very close to one child. I was about 9 or 11 years old. I can't remember exactly how old, but 9 or 11, and he was a Down syndrome child. But we became very close. I enjoyed playing with him and talking to him. Um, but after the second visit, I noticed that I would go there to play, and I'd leave my wallet on a table in a workstation, and then go run around. But when I went back, I noticed that I was missing 1 ringgit, 5 ringgit, and 10 ringgit notes. These $1, $5, $10 notes, Malaysian dollar notes. And I remember getting very upset, saying, "What's the point of helping people if all they do is steal from me?" And I was determined to find out who was stealing. I went to my mother. I was very angry and very loud and saying, "I'm going to find out. I'm going to ensure that I find out." And the next visit that I went was going to be my last before I went back to boarding school. And I was all ready to just confront people and find out who took my money. The moment I arrived, Philip just grabbed me before I could say anything and took me to his workstation. And on his workstation was this manila card and all these magazines, and he'd cut up pictures from the magazines and stuck it on this manila card because he was making me a poster as a farewell present because he knew I was leaving. And then I looked at this beautiful manila card with all these pictures, and inside it were cut up 1 ringgit, 5 ringgit, and 10 ringgit notes. He looked at me and said, "I ran out of colored pieces of paper. I hope you don't mind. I borrowed some of yours." And I guess it took a 9-year-old Down syndrome kid to remind me that I was getting so upset and frustrated over colored pieces of paper. But that's all it was to him. And that's all it is, really. Colored piece of paper. We kill for it. We die for it. We hate for it. We love for it. Um, and to that moment, I realized that money will never control me. Money will never control what I do and what I say and how I do it. Money is a tool. It won't direct me. I'll direct it. It's like a chair. If I don't have a chair, I'll sit on the floor. And that's all it is. An important tool, but just a tool. You can never let it control you or define why and what you do. Colored piece of paper. Um, and I guess at the end of the day, going forward post-pandemic, we need to temper greed. We need to realize that we get very excited over a colored piece of paper when we shouldn't. And if we can enhance our environment, if we can enhance our community, if we can lift people around us out of poverty in as much as we can, whatever role we play. But if all of us played some role, imagine how everything changes. Imagine how much richer we as economic leaders can get, wealthier, because everyone around us is wealthier and everything grows. And I'd like to leave that with you as a final thought as we move forward in what we need in future economic leaders, in future business leaders, the type of thinking we need to have, and the difference we need to make. Thank you very much for having me. I'm hoping that one day we can all gather again in person at a conference and shake hands and see each other. But until then, have a great conference, and thank you for having me.
A befitting keynote indeed for all of us. Thank you very much, Dr. Vinod. I must admit that many a times we do manage to gather a lot of data points, for that matter, interesting touch points. But I think what we did receive was something more holistic, because it came in the form of some real anecdotes that you've shared from your life. And I think that truly, sort of makes us look up to all these interesting examples that you've shared and all that we have to look forward to. So thank you so much again for that very important message that you've left us with. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we've gathered some really, really relevant and important insights from the leaders, but it's that time of the evening wherein we shift the gears and take you towards our next segment of the program. That's right. What we're going to do now is actually move ahead with the felicitation of the Asia's promising business leaders. And while we do that, first up, we're going to give it a beautiful start with the unveiling of the coffee table book for all of you. This coffee table book is the Economic Times 6th edition of Asia's Promising Business Leaders Coffee Table Book. So first up, let's take a look.